Hey X, so this thing has been happening to me lately that I'd like your opinion/help on. I work at a little convenience store located right next to a beach in NNY. We always have lots of customers. Plenty of them are locals, just dropping in to get soda and snacks. But at this point in the year and later, we are getting more and more summer people in campers and whatnot. I get plenty of weirdness and assholes, but nothing has been weirder than this girl that has been showing up. She always comes by around 5 p.m. on this little moped, sopping wet, as though she had just dragged herself out of the lake. She comes in wearing just her bathing suit, dark sunglasses, and walks to the back of the store. The first time this happened, me and the girl who works my shift with me, really did not think much of her. There are some inconsiderate people in the world, and walking in while dripping water was not the worst she could do. We had kind of lost track of her, even though she was the only person there. After about 4 o'clock, people don't really come to the beach to swim. We only remembered when we heard a whole rack of 2-liter sodas hitting the ground, and a prompt explosion of one. Tanya and I both rolled our eyes. Cleanup was going to be a bitch, but we usually waited for the customer to come to us with damaged goods. And nothing. Not a peep, other than the air conditioner and the sound of the soda leaking out on the linoleum. I finally left the front desk to go and check it out, but when I got there, all I found was a pile of root beers with one open on the floor. The aisle was empty. Thinking I might have just missed her, or she somehow passed me without me noticing on the other side of the aisles, I combed the free shelves as well as the back alcove with local paraphernalia, and found nothing. By then, I was convinced we had not only someone who damaged goods, but a thief. I went to the window as quickly as I could with wet shoes to grab the girl's number plate. And nothing. No moped, no vehicles at all. I could see a line of wet prints coming into the shop and leaving, and they were already dissolving in the heat. I went back to Tanya, and we bitched at length about the inconsiderate girl. I asked her if she caught the girl ducking out, but she hadn't, even though she had been arranging the store's front display of s'mores makings and handwritten sign of Camp Wood. We decided we would keep an eye out for her and not mention anything to the store owner yet. We cleaned up the mess and thought nothing of her for the rest of the shift. The next time we saw the inconsiderate girl, she rode up on her little moped just as before. It was easy to hear the whine of the engine and see her through the front. She walked in, still wearing her two-piece, still sopping wet and dripping onto the floor, and still wearing sunglasses. Upon entering, she walked to the back of the store, just as before. Tanya and I exchanged looks, and I followed the girl to the back. She is standing there, staring into the alcoholic drinks cooler, completely still. She is maybe the size of a small tween, a little on the thin side, with tons and tons of sopping wet hair. And she's just standing there, staring, completely still, making a puddle. "Hi, can I help you find something?" I ask and approach her. She does not respond. She does not even look in my direction. She just stands there, staring. I'm sort of directly behind her, to her left at this point. I'm a little worried that despite my size compared to hers, she could end up being completely crazy and try to hurt me. Finally, she turns her head to speak to me. Her head is at a funny angle, as if she's hurt her neck, and asks me if I have any raspberry wine coolers. I tried to helpfully direct her to other flavor choices, but she just makes small, non-committal sounds. At this point, I'm getting a little freaked out. She is still soaking wet. I can easily see that her skin has goosebumps, but she is not shivering. She has this kind of lethargic manner of speaking and moving, and when she does move, she kind of wavers and then corrects herself, like someone recovering from heat stroke or something. She does not sound drunk or high or anything. Eventually, after a rousing argument about our lack of wine coolers, not really, it went something like, "Sorry, I guess we don't stock anything in that flavor. Maybe try strawberry? It's okay. Or mango, that's good. There's mixed packs too. It's okay." She zombie shuffled to the snacks aisle behind her and clumsily swiped at a bag of onion rings. Clutching this, she squeaked/shuffled back to the front of the store, and despite the fact that I immediately turned to dog her to the front of the store, I had somehow lost track of her in the aisles. I found her waiting for me at the front desk with the onion rings on the counter. She was standing with her back to me, completely still fucking dripping. I had no idea how it was possible for one person to retain this much water. At this point, I felt a little bolt of unease, even stronger than when we first saw her, and immediately realized why. She did not fidget or look around like normal people would while waiting in line. She did not seem upset that there was no one there to ring her up. Tanya seemed to have bailed, and we were perfectly alone. I kind of hesitantly circled behind her to get to the flap to let me behind the desk. As I passed her, I could hear this strange little chittering sound coming from her, and when I got behind the desk, I figured out why. Her teeth were chattering violently. I had not seen her face up close until then, though most of it was obscured behind giant sunglasses. The rest of it was completely impassive, aside for her chattering teeth. Mind you, I didn't really examine her too closely. She was really freaking me out at this point. I rang up her purchase and waited patiently. After a long pause, she detaches a little change purse from the hip of her bathing suit and fishes out a $1 bill and some change. It isn't exact, and I have to break open a roll of quarters to give her the correct amount back. The girl's unnerving teeth chattering has now stopped. I count out the change, out loud, because I am nervous and I get chipper when I get nervous, and go to hand it to her. She just stands there, however. She does not reach out to accept the change, so I cover up the awkwardness by bagging her onion rings and tell her that her change is in the bag. She opens her mouth and a burbling sound comes out, like she's trying to breathe and there's water in the way. I get a little disgusted jolt and, model employee that I am, patiently wait for her to try again. She clears her throat and promptly coughs up a goodly amount of fluid onto the counter. She does not say anything after this. She slowly reaches up and wraps her fingers around the handle and then walks to the door. It rings as she pushes her way out. I am a little worried at this point, but also considerably upset. I did not like having to clean up customers' bodily fluids, but it's part of the job description, and I call to Tanya, wherever the fuck she is, to get some Clorox and some paper towels from the back. At this point, Tanya hesitantly pokes her head out from the back, and then, seeing that I'm alone, finally comes back out. She then proceeds to tell me how she had been watching the camera feed from above the booze cooler, the other place that we monitor, while I had been interacting with the girl. She swore up and down that the girl's face did not have a reflection. That is, she could see a dark shape where the girl's head was, but no facial features. She said she could even see mine, clear as day, but the girl's reflection was just this indistinct shadow. I had not noticed anything of the sort, and even though this was creepy, I wasn't very inclined to believe Tanya. Tanya is nervous by nature and has a habit of stretching the truth a little, so I take her story with a grain of salt, even though she seems legitimately scared and adamantly refuses to be in the store when the girl is here in the future. In fact, she wanted to complain to our boss about her, and possibly even file a complaint with the police. I tell her that she is overreacting and needs to calm down. She does, but is wide-eyed and jumps for the rest of the night until we close down. When we are packing up to go home, about an hour after the girl comes in, Tanya, who is getting into her car next to the dense bushes by the parking lot, suddenly screams and leaps practically over her hood to get away from them. I immediately drop my bike. I live a mile away from work, and it's good exercise, and run over to see what the matter is. Tanya is babbling on and on about she thought she saw a body in the woods, and she swore it was the girl, and on and on and on. We both go over to check, and, surprise surprise, there is nothing there. Tanya is whimpering and crying at this point, and points out that there's a fucking flip-flop over there. It's her fucking flip-flop. And indeed, it looked to be a twin of the pair the girl wears into the store, a bright neon orangey pink. I eventually managed to calm her down by saying it could be anyone's, and said she probably only saw it out of the corner of her eye, and her brain just filled the rest in. Tanya was not convinced, but was significantly calmer. She disagreed with me taking the flip-flop home with me. Now I'm beginning to regret it myself. I honestly don't know what possessed me to. I kind of wanted to show Tanya how ridiculous she was being. That, hey, look, I took home a creepy, dreaded item and I survived. And partly, that if I saw the girl again, I would give it back to her. I'm a big proponent to paying it forward in social niceties. This was last Friday that we found the flip-flop and I took it home. We go home, and I blow the incident off. I make a pizza, drink some beer, and leave the offending sandal by the door. Like I said, I kind of did it without thinking. I only work Mondays to Fridays in the store, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., so when I brought it home with me, intending to bring it back to the store the next day, I realized my error. I honestly have no idea how the girl got my address. I asked Tanya about it later, and she swears up and down she never talked to the girl, and the girl never talked to her. But the very next day, after taking the flip-flop, the girl shows up at my house. It was sometime after 3 this last Saturday when I heard a knock at the door. I don't get many visitors, and people who know me usually just walk in and call out a hello. But I went to the door without wondering much, expecting possibly an itinerant meat salesman or something. I stupidly did not even look outside before opening up the door. The inconsiderate girl was standing just on the other side, sopping wet, with what looked like fresh water. She was still wearing the same bathing suit and sunglasses and was now missing a sandal. She said quietly that she realized she had lost her shoe at the store and wondered if I had saved it for her. It was the longest speech I'd ever heard from her mouth. For some reason, I didn't really think it was odd that she knew that I had it. I was actually kind of pleased that she was talking to me now. I smiled and ducked back inside and retrieved the item and offered it out to her. She just reached out and took it, and her fingers brushed mine. She was ice cold and clammy, and her fingers had the weird texture that skin gets when it's underwater for way too long. She thanked me quietly, and, through conversation, I complimented her on her dedication to her swimming. I figured that she must have gone all the time. She told me she hated swimming and was actually afraid of water. I really had no idea what to say. I told her I hoped she would have a good day and asked her if she needed anything else. She kind of wavered and then haltingly reached up to touch her glasses. She asked if she could borrow a towel or something. She would be sure to return it. I was actually a little relieved she finally acknowledged her abnormally soaking wet condition and fetched a beach towel. She wrapped it around herself slowly when I returned and said something I didn't really expect. Not many people would help me. Thank you. This kind of struck me. I wanted to know if she wanted me to call anyone for her. She really didn't seem fit to drive, and she seemed to consider this. She asked if she could borrow my phone, so I went to go get it. When I got back, she was gone. My beach towel was neatly folded on the top step. By the way, I forgot to add that the fluid that she coughed up on the front desk appeared to be water, pure water. I really don't have much knowledge about what happens to water once it's processed in a person's stomach, but it appeared to just be plain water. Still gross to clean up though. Obviously, that messed me up a little bit again. How the hell did she take off so quickly without me noticing? What was even worse was that I began seeing her a lot. When I went to go into town to buy groceries on Sunday, I saw her standing at the entrance to the beach on the other side of the ticket booth. I didn't really think much of it until I got back, unloaded my groceries, and got a tap on my patio door. At first, I had just pegged it down as some stupid bird, but as the tapping continued, I realized that it was man-made and poked my head outside of the kitchen to check. It was the girl. She was standing on the other side of the glass, one hand pressed on it, and she was staring in too. I flipped out internally, but went to the patio. She is a little drier at this point, no water dripping off of her body visibly, but she definitely still looks like she climbed out of a pool less than half an hour ago. I cracked open the door and asked if she needed help. She asked if she could come in and wait for her ride since her moped had broken down. I was waffling a little at this point, but she was honestly acting much more normal than I had ever seen her before. Maybe it was just the illusion that being dry gave her, but I eventually relented. I'm a grown-ass man, and I am not afraid of some tiny little girl. When she stepped inside, I realized she was trailing a beach towel, almost identical to mine. I led her to the living room, where she courteously spread out her towel on the couch before sitting down. I asked her where her moped had broken down. She said it was not far away, but she said she could not go home with it like that. I asked who was picking her up, and her face crumpled a little. She said that her boyfriend was coming from the beach to get her. He was a lifeguard there. I was beginning to understand why she spent so much time at the beach and struck up a conversation about it, but she insisted she hated swimming, she hated the water, and furthermore, hated her boyfriend. By this last part, I was stunned. We don't keep records of the security footage. Like I said before, my boss is pretty cheap. Tanya was watching me in real time, talking with the girl, like the giant puss she is. Anyway, as I was saying, her vehemence shocked me. As I was awkwardly fumbling through how I was sure it wasn't that bad, I heard this sort of aborted squalling. I realized very quickly that it was a ringtone, but badly warped. The girl reaches to a flip phone she has clipped to her bathing suit bottom. It has been making an epileptic flashing, but when she opens the phone, I can see that the screen is dead. She totters to her feet and shuffles to the front door. She wraps her towel around herself and stumbles out. I stepped out behind her, and just as I looked up, saw her climb into the back of a black pickup truck on elevated wheels. The thing was blacker than fuck, with tinted windows and straight pipes. The fucker roared off with her in the back, and that was the last I saw of her until today. Wow, hi guys. Sorry I was gone for so long. A ton of stuff happened. As someone mentioned, it's an odd time for me to be posting, since I work 6 to 6. Due to my boss's incredibly stingy nature, I can only work those hours every other day. On other days, I work from 3 to 6. He tries to keep us from having full-time jobs as much as possible. Sometimes, he switches days as is convenient to him, like yesterday. Anyway, as I was saying, Sunday had been the last day I had seen her, excepting yesterday, when I had gone to the beach to deliver an order from some rich asshole. My boss had decided he did not want me to work today, and I do odd jobs for people around town. One of them is to deliver groceries for the incredibly rich people in the Campers Association on an island off town. I decided to drop in at work when I did, pick up some shit for myself, and wander down to the beach, as I don't get to see it that often, despite the fact I work so close to it. I was there relatively early, so the beach was deserted. There were a few people who camped here, walking the beach for exercise, and lifeguards getting set up, but other than that, it was just the seagulls and me. It gave me a really peaceful feeling. I love the lake, and whenever I can, I walk and explore what I can. So I did, right on past where the lines were that marked where you could swim. As you can imagine, the further that I went, the fewer the people there were until I passed a large rock and I was alone. As I wandered, looking at the lake and nothing in particular, I noticed something bobbing on the top of the water not too far out. It's not too unusual to have junk floating in the water, but usually it's seaweed or a dead fish or something, and this was brightly colored. After looking at it properly, I could easily identify it as a flip-flop. I started to walk forward, judging where the flip-flop was going to make a landing on the beach, when my foot caught something that was not sand-textured. I looked down. It was the bottom half of a 2-piece bathing suit that tied at the hips with different thin straps of blue, aqua, and turquoise. It was covered in sand, as though it had been buried and emerged due to the heavy amount of traffic that dug it up. It was exactly the same bathing suit that the girl wore, but I brushed it off, as you could have bought the same one from any Target in the country. Still, it gave me an uneasy feeling. The longer I stayed in the same place, the longer I felt a growing unease. I looked back out the lake and squinted at the flip-flop that was now about 10 feet from the shore and about 100 feet away down the beach from me. I jogged to go get it. I waded into the water, and when I pulled it out, I found a flip phone attached to the thong of the sandal. My feeling of dread skyrocketed into panic, but before I could really think about what I was going to do about it, someone shouted from up the beach. One of the lifeguards was running down the beach towards me with a grim expression. "You can't be in the water down here," he called, and when he got to me, he added, "And the beach isn't open for swimming yet." I went through a list of excuses and apologies, and then showed him the flip-flop and the sandal, and told him about the girl. The guy turned as white as a sheet. He listened intently before shakily scruffing a hand through his hair, agreeing with me that it was pretty weird and he would file a complaint. He was obviously not adding something, so I asked him what was wrong. He really seemed to want to talk about it, and after a few seconds of thinking about it, finally said, "It's just really weird. It's a really big coincidence." He told me about how years beforehand, this girl had been drowned at the beach by her lifeguard boyfriend. He had been suspected and was the prime suspect in the crime, but had not been charged or convicted, and he still lifeguarded at the beach today. Most people didn't think he did it. Everyone knew he had been messing around on her with other girls, but it's not like that's a good reason to kill someone, especially if you're just dating. The people that lifeguarded at the beach thought there might have been a pregnancy involved. Douchey McDoucherson lifeguard had been complaining about his whiny, needy, complaining girlfriend wanting to bring a kid into the relationship, which he was not cool with. Most people on the lifeguard team thought of him as a psychopath. The girl disappeared about a week after people had heard him complaining, and had been found drowned on the rocky part of the beach a few days after her disappearance. My lifeguard buddy said he would take the stuff I had found and keep it up at the office. He said he would give it up to the police instead of keeping it at the lost and found, because he was pretty sure it was some of the dead girl's effects that had not been found yet. As you can probably guess, she had not been found with her bathing suit bottom, left flip-flop, or cell phone. I let the guy take it and walked back with him to the office. I figured it was all just a coincidence. I asked what the girl's name had been in case I saw my mystery twin again. The guy kind of hesitated, but told me anyway. I went about my business after the guy went back to the office, leaving it in his hands. No, I did not take pictures of the things I found, but if I do see my mystery girl again, I'll ask if her name is Arizona. Not her real name, obviously, but she is named after an American state, and I arbitrarily picked a different one. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I used to work as a 911 dispatcher. At that point, I had taken everything. I'd taken bar fights, heart attacks, overdoses, high-speed chases, even one guy who found his wife hanging in the garage. That one gutted me, but I held it together. I had to. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Traffic accidents were flooding in. The lines were busy but manageable. The call caught me by surprise as I was eating at the time. The beep came in, sharp and loud. 911, what is your emergency? The voice on the other end of the line was a man's. It was calm at first, but there was something within it that I could not quite place yet. He told me his name, but I will just refer to him as A. He said it softly. His voice had the old man shake to it. He sounded tired and a little breathless. I think I'm in trouble, he said. Okay, tell me what's going on. I went off the road. I was on Riverbed Parkway, just past Millstone Bridge. I hydroplaned. I think I'm in the river. The word river snapped me straight up. You're in the car still, sir. Yes, ma'am. I can't get the door open. Are you in the water right now? There was a pause. Yes, it's coming up through the floor. I started dispatching immediately. I began sending a priority 1 to both police and fire rescue. Then I put my comm voice on. It was the one we are trained to use. Okay, A, listen to me. I've got help coming, alright? Just stay calm, and I need you to tell me exactly where you are. He rattled off a few landmarks again. I knew the area pretty well, and that part of the river ran fast and cold this time of the year. It was a steep embankment bent from the road down to the riverbank. It had no guardrails. If he slid off, he would go straight into it. "Can you see outside your windows?" "It's foggy," he replied. "The water's halfway up my legs now. I can't open the door." "Okay, don't panic. Is there anything in the car that you can use to break a window? A tire iron, a flashlight?" He fumbled with something, and I could hear it. It was metal clinking. His breathing was starting to get ragged. I have a cane. Try using it on the window. Aim for the corner, that's the weakest part. You've got to break the glass." A soft whack followed, and then another. There was no shattering noises though. I muted my mic and shouted for a supervisor. "Get eyes on the millstone now, he's sinking." I came back. "Don't worry, just keep trying. Help is on the way. I need you to stay with me, okay?" I heard him grunt, and then another whack. "It's not working. Water's at my chest. It's cold. It's so cold." His voice cracked then, and panic was blooming. "I can't breathe." You can. Please keep calm and just listen to me. Focus on my voice." He sobbed once, sharp and shameful, like he was embarrassed. Then, in the softest whisper, he said, I don't want to die." My screen updated. A unit was now 2 minutes out. Another unit was stuck rerouting due to road closures. Rescue was pouring out. "I've lived 84 years, he said. "I've got grandkids, twins born last spring. I was going to see them next weekend." "You still will, I promise. Just keep working on that window. Do you have a seatbelt cutter or some kind of tool?" "No." "What about the horn? Hit the horn. Somebody might hear you." I heard him slam his palm down, and muffled honks rang out over the line. He did it again and again and again, until I yelled at him to stop to save his strength. "It's freezing," he whispered. My teeth are chattering. I'm so cold. I can't move my legs. "Please do not give up. You are not alone. I am here with you." There was a long silence, and then he said, "They're not going to make it to me, are they?" I wanted to lie. I needed to lie, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at the screen, at the little dots moving in the digital map. I could not open my mouth. "It's okay," he said. I shook my head, even though he could not see me. No, it's not." The sounds changed after that. There was this rushing sound, like wind or maybe water moving over something. I heard him gasp, and it echoed through the phone. I pictured it now, water up to his neck, his head pressing up against the roof of the car. "I'm scared," he said. And that did it. I started crying right there. I did it quietly, so nobody else would notice. I've heard people die before, but never like this. Never so slowly, and never begging me like this. The call timer ticked up. 7 minutes had passed. "You still there with me?" "Still here," he said. He was barely even audible now. I think it's in my mouth." The background noise changed once more. A bubbling sound came through, and then choking. I sat bolt upright and screamed for him. Gurgling was the only thing I got back in response. I asked him to please say something, anything. A weak cough, another sob, and then nothing. I checked the call time again. 8 minutes. The unit was close, so damn close. I radioed again and told them to hurry, that he was underwater and that we were losing him. Static, and then a garbled reply. "En route. River's over. It's really hard to get down." I dropped my head to the desk. The line was still open, but no voice. Only the sounds of water. Then there was a dull thud, and just silence. I did not even realize I was shaking until the floor supervisor pulled me off of the line and replaced me with somebody else. They didn't get there in time. A had died with his head tilted back, his mouth full of cold, black water, and I was the last person that he ever talked to. They pulled him out 20 minutes later. By that time, the car had completely vanished below the surface. A fire rescue diver found it snagged against a fallen tree downstream. It was about 30 yards from where he said he went in at. The windows were still intact. His seatbelt was still on. He never stood a chance.